Let me ask you something real. Have you ever loved your job but dreaded your boss? In my coaching circles, and even just grabbing coffee with friends, I hear it constantly. Edem, I love what I do, but my boss is making my life miserable. Here is what we usually do. We spend 90% of our energy venting and 10% strategizing. We replay the meeting, we text our friend, we rehearse argument in the shower, but we rarely build a plan. Research from MIT Sloan found that workplace toxicity is 10 times more likely to make someone quit than low pay. 10 times. So, most people don't leave bad jobs. They leave bad leadership. And here's the painful part. Almost no one teaches us how to manage upward with wisdom instead of resentment. So, capable professionals slowly become discouraged ones. Sharp people start shrinking. Strong people start second-guessing themselves. Today, we are closing the gap. I'm giving you the C.A.L.M method, a framework popularized by author Lynn Taylor. This is part 2 of our Survival Guide series. And before we break it down, let me say this. This is not theory. This is a framework I have coached emerging young leaders on, and the feedback has been powerful. People have told me, Edem, this changed how I show up. This helped me breathe again. I stopped feeling stuck. Because when you don't feel powerless, you don't feel panicked. You feel positioned. So let us build that position. Before we get into the method, we have to fix the mindset. John Maxwell teaches, you don't need a title to lead. Leadership isn't about position. It is about influence. And I say this, leadership shows up in how you handle pressure, not in your title. So, if your boss is scattered, insecure, reactive, you don't shrink, you lead up. That means you solve their biggest pain point. Proverbs 22:29 says, do you see a man skilled in his work? He will serve before kings. Or, put simply, excellence opens doors. If faith isn't your framework, think of it this way. In any system, corporate, nonprofit, startup, the person who consistently solves problems becomes valuable. And valuable people get access. If you become the calmest problem solver in a chaotic room, eventually decision makers notice. Leading up doesn't mean excusing poor behavior. It means refusing to let dysfunction dictate your development. And here is something most people miss. Many difficult bosses aren't evil. They are anxious. They are overwhelmed. They are afraid of looking incompetent. When you address the fear behind the behavior, the temperature in the room often drops. Not instantly, but gradually. That is where the C.A.L.M framework comes in. So let's start with C, communicate. Most conflict grows in confusion. So we use the clarity script. If your boss micromanages instead of silently boiling, try this, for example. I want to make sure I'm hitting the mark. Instead of hourly check-ins, can we agree on a 4 p.m. update or whatever time is appropriate in your case? Notice what you did. You didn't accuse, you aligned. You replaced anxiety with a system. Friendly tip, pay attention to your systems. They are your secret leadership shield. I digress. Back to it. Micromanagement is often rooted in fear, not malice. When you provide structure, you soothe stress. Clarity creates calm. Calm builds credibility. It is like turning on the light in a messy room. The monsters shrink when the lights come on. Next, A, anticipate. Colossians 3:23 says, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord. In other words, work with integrity even when no one is clapping. Or in practical terms, be the person who thinks ahead. If your boss panics every Monday, send the report Friday. If they hate surprises, preview update early. If they obsess over details, attach the backup document before they ask. Anticipation turns you from reactive to reliable. And reliability quietly builds trust, even with insecure leaders. Think of it like weatherproofing. You don't wait for the rain to fix the roof. You prepare for the storm. That is maturity. That is foresight. That is leadership. Now listen, applying this takes mental energy. It is easier to complain than to calculate, easier to vent than to build. But if this framework is helping you see a way out of the chaos, hit subscribe. We talk about these shifts every week because staying strong in difficult environment requires skill, not just stamina. Now, let us finish strong. Next in our C.A.L.M method is L for life. Of course, internally. Proverbs 17:22 says, a cheerful heart is good medicine. In other words, your internal atmosphere affects your external endurance. If faith isn't your grade, think psychology. Emotional distance protects mental health. When the predictable rent starts, instead of absorbing it, observe it. You may say in your mind, the 10 a.m. tantrum, right on schedule. You move from victim to observer, from emotional hostage to pattern analyst. That shift keeps you from burning the bridges you may still need. When you lose your joy, you lose your judgment. So, protect your internal climate. Next is M, manage up. Become the fixer. If you make your boss look good to their boss, they begin to depend on your competence. You create a buffer zone of peace for your team. You become the stabilizer, the steady sail in shaky winds. In any organization, the person who reduces chaos increases influence. And influence is leadership, even from the middle. Now, here is my final practical tip. Every communicate, that's the C in the C.A.L.M, should be followed by documentation. After meetings, send a message like this. Just to clarify, we agreed on A, B, and C. I will deliver by Friday. Not defensive, not dramatic, just clear. As Patrick Lencioni says, accountability is the cure for dysfunction. Now, let me speak to you directly. Some of you are exhausted. You are replaying conversations at night. You are walking into meetings with a knot in your stomach. You are wondering, is it me? And the longer it goes on, the more it chips at your confidence. You start shrinking, overthinking, second-guessing your value. And if you don't address it, it turns into a quiet burnout. A word of comfort. You don't have to figure it out alone. Twice a month, I host a free leadership webinar where we break down real workplace scenarios like this one, live. We workshop them. We build strategies every other Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time, and 12 a.m. GMT. I created it specifically for emerging leaders who feel stuck between pressure and potential. I know what it's like to navigate difficult leadership. I've lived it, and I don't want you shrinking when you could be strengthening. So, if this resonated, join us. Link in the description. You may not control the storm, but you can adjust the sails. Next week, we will talk about the exit strategy and the 4-letter word you need to remember. Until then, lead well. Click here for part 1 of this series. God bless.